I'm Lisa Rubel from Love to Color My World, and today I'm here to share a tutorial to make woven fabric mug rugs. I came up with this tutorial because we're spending a lot more time at home these days, and while my kids really like to sew with me, when there's 3 kids and 1 sewing machine, it's hard to make that happen. So I wanted to find a project that they could all do on their own that didn't involve the sewing machine. To make one of these mug rugs, you're going to need a piece of cardboard that's about 8 inches by 10 inches. We just cut this from a box. A ruler, a pencil, some kitchen twine or yarn, some sort of, this is a skewer stick, but some sort of skewer stick or pencil, a safety pin, and a bunch of strips of fabric. These are all 42 inches long by about a 1/2 inch wide. You can just cut into some extra jelly rolls or just cut some thin strips from your fabric. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is mark our cardboard. So you're going to start about a 1/2 inch in from the edge and draw a line all the way down, and then continue across, drawing lines every 1/2 inch. Doesn't matter how many you do. The one I've been working off of, the sort of loom I've been working off of, is 14 lines. The only key is that you need to have an even number of lines because that helps when you're tying off at the end. So you're going to go across the whole way, making your lines. And then when you get to the edge, let's see how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. One more. 14, okay. Then you're going to take a scissors and you're going to cut in just about a 1/2 inch on each strip. And that's going to work to function as your loom. So you do that on all of the lines on this side and then switch it over and do on the other side. And you'll end up with a piece like this with the little fringes at the end. Now to build our loom, you're going to take your kitchen twine, and the stuff that I have is real loosely raveled. If you have something that's got a little tighter, that'll be much easier to use. So you're going to tuck the end in the first strip and leave some extra, then run it down to the other end, tuck it in the first one, and then come back around the second one so that it creates a loop like that. Go back across the front, tuck behind the second, then come back around from the third, and just continue doing that all the way across. So when you've finished going all the way across with your string, what I do is cut a little bit of a longer piece at the end and then tie the 2 ends together. The cardboard is tight enough that they shouldn't slip otherwise, but that way you just know your ends are secure. Now we're ready to get weaving. So the first thing we're going to do is tie the end of our first strip to our loom. And all I'm doing for that is just a simple little knot. You can tuck the end under later when you get further along, but that is enough to hold it. And then in lieu of a needle, because we're working with kind of wide strips of fabric, take a safety pin and just pin near the end of the fabric, and this will work to help you weave. You can just go in and out if you want, but what works better is to take something like a skewer and go under every other piece of string, and then you can create the path to send your fabric through. So after I do that with the skewer, I just push my pin through and then pull the fabric through behind it. And once the fabric is through, you can pull out the threads, and then you have your fabric in place. You don't want it to be too tight, but you don't want to have loose gaps. And if you want to make sure that all the fabric is right side up, you can do that. But as you can see from the finished product, a lot of times there's upside down areas, and that's not a big deal. And then what I do, I flip it back around because I just like working from right to left. Take your skewer and go under the opposite from last time. So all of the ones that you were over last time, you're going to be under, and under last time, you're going to be over. And then again, take this pinned end of your strip, run it through that gap that you've made, and pull it tight. I personally like my fabric to be straight, so I'm going to untwist it a little bit to make it straight. There we go. Now what you don't want to do is pull too tight on this because it'll pull that last string in. You want it to be snug but not pulling too much. You can see there. And just keep doing this back and forth until you get to the end of your first strip, and then we'll join a second strip in. Now it's time to add our second strip. So take off your safety pin, fold the end of your fabric over about 1/2 inch, and you're going to take a sharp scissors and cut a slit. Make sure the slit doesn't go to the end, so you want to see it's there in the fabric. Then take your new strip and do the same thing. This is an alternative to tying a knot. And then you're going to fold the end of your new strip in half to make it smaller and slide it through that slit in your first strip. And after you've done that, take the opposite end of your new strip, fold it in half as well, and tuck it through its own slit. So that's going to make a loop that you can then pull tight, and it functions like a knot. Okay, then we're going to put our our safety pin back on our new strip, and then continue on adding the next strip. You will end up likely switching to a new strip partway through your row, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. When you slide it all together, it won't be noticeable. And you can kind of shift the fabric a bit so that the, our pseudo knot kind of tucks in, and see it's barely noticeable there. So once you have that new strip gone through, then just keep going back and forth, adding strips, and work your way all the way across. You want to stop about 1 inch from the end so that you have room to tie. You can also see with the blue, I've kind of pushed mine down a bit, which condenses it, makes it a little more dense, which will make your finished product a little thicker and also gives us more room to tie off the strings at the end. So once you've finished all your weaving, we're going to take the safety pin off and tie a knot to finish. You want to tie it around that last string piece on the side. If you want, you can put a second knot in as well just to secure it. Then if you cut it with a little tail, you'll be able to tuck the tail in later. So this is your last chance to kind of scrunch things towards the center. You can use your fingers to push it in. Ideally, you want to have a good inch and a half of space at the end, especially if you have string that unravels a lot like mine. The first thing you're going to do is flip it over and cut the loop between two, and then take those two ends and put a double knot in. So you can see how the pieces of my string are unraveling. This is going to be kind of like the fringe at the end of a rug. So you're going to do that all the way across. And I'm going to show you the other end too, because it's slightly different. This is where you have your string from before. So the difference is at this end, you would cut between a loop and cut those two together. Because these are offset, you're going to cut a loop and then use the first piece from that with your end piece, which was not part of that original loop, and tie your double knot. And you can go back and trim the ends later. And then to do the next one, you're going to have to cut your next loop, and then you take the next two pieces, which would be one from each loop, and tie another knot. So you're going to do that along both ends until your rug has come off of your loom. So once all your knots are tied, your little woven rug is done. You can use it as a coaster, you can use it as a mug rug, just put it out for decoration, but it's a nice little activity that will take 20-30 minutes of time. All of my kids who are 11, 8, and 5 made one of these. The 5-year-old needed a little more help, but it's a very kid-friendly activity. Here's another one that I made using all solid fabrics, which is nice because you don't have to worry about the back of the fabric. I also used a skinnier black and white kitchen twine for that. Another alternative is instead of doing your strips, your lines 1/2 inch apart, you could do them closer together, which means you're going to be doing a lot more weaving, but you'll get a tighter look for it and more fringe at the end. You can also vary the width of your strips for different looks as well. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and are able to use it to use some of your time at home for something crafty.